Good morning, everyone. In previous lecture, we have started alcoholic liver disease. So, in first lecture, we have completed its introduction and its pathogenesis. Today, we will see about clinical features of alcoholic liver disease. So, first of all, when dealing with alcoholic liver disease and to diagnose this alcoholic liver disease, the history of excessive alcohol intake along with features of liver disease which include symptoms, physical signs, laboratory data and imaging they are essential. So to diagnose alcoholic liver disease, we should first focus on history of alcohol intake because most of the times patients they frequently deny or understate the alcohol levels and hence a clinical suspicion it should be confirmed by thorough questioning of family members and close friends as well. So as you know, many of the patients who drink alcohol, who consume alcohol in they deny their habit of drinking alcohol or sometimes they understate the alcohol abuse. That means they will tell that they don't take alcohol frequently or they do not suffer with this alcohol. So such type of history, such patients they may give. So whenever patient comes with some physical signs or symptoms of alcoholic liver disease, so in that case we should confirm his history of excessive alcohol intake by questioning to the family members and close friends. Now we will see the clinical manifestation in a patients with fatty liver. The clinical manifestations of alcoholic fatty liver they are subtle and characteristically detected as a consequence of patient's visit for a seemingly unrelated matter. So simply it means patient will not have any symptoms. So most of the time patient is asymptomatic with the fatty liver, but it can be diagnosed when patient comes for another matter and we advise some USG abdomen to that patient. So say for example, patient may come with an abdominal pain uh, or some other kind of complaint, and in that case, if you advise USG abdomen in that patient, so in that case you may get fatty liver as a finding, and along with this fatty liver, patient may have some another reason for that abdominal pain, like patient may have renal stone, and considering renal stone, if you advise USG to that patient, so in that case, patient may have accidental finding of fatty liver. Previously suspected hepatomegaly, it is often only a clinical finding. So, if patient has previous unsuspected hepatomegaly, it is the only clinical finding which we can get in a patient with fatty liver disease. Some patients they have vague symptoms which includes anorexia, malaise, nausea, or right hypochondriac discomfort or pain, and rarely patient will have jaundice. So the most of the times patient does not have symptoms in fatty liver. So I'm talking about fatty liver. So some patients they may have anorexia, malaise, and nausea, or sometimes right hypochondriac discomfort. And jaundice, it is rarely found in fatty liver disease unless it is advanced. Physical examination, it is also unremarkable in this patient. Although some patients may have mild hepatomegaly without any signs of chronic liver disease. In every instance where liver disease is present, a thoughtful and sensitive drinking history it should be obtained. So you should remember this line that in every patient, when you suspect or patient has liver disease, we should always focus or investigate on drinking history of the patient. Now, the clinical manifestations which are found in more severe alcoholic hepatitis. So these type of patient they usually present with fever and signs of hepatocellular failure, which includes jaundice, ascites, and cephalopathy. So the most of the patient, because in previous lecture I have told that the alcoholic liver disease, it usually consists of fatty liver, alcoholic hepatitis, and cirrhosis. So in previous slide we have seen about fatty liver, and now we are seeing alcoholic hepatitis. So the patient who comes with or who has alcoholic hepatitis, they usually come with fever and signs of hepatocellular failure, which includes jaundice, ascites, and cephalopathy. So along with fever, some patient may have spider nevy. So in this diagram, you can see this. You can see visible blood vessels on the abdomen. So this is a spider nevy. Then some patient, they may have jaundice and abdominal pain, simulating an acute abdomen, which represent the extreme end of the spectrum, while many patients will be entirely asymptomatic. So simply it means most of the patient or many of the patient, they may be asymptomatic in alcoholic hepatitis, but those who develop some severity in the alcoholic hepatitis, they will have fever, then signs of hepatocellular failure, then some patient may have jaundice, and if patient usually present with abdominal pain and ascites or encephalopathy, so it usually represent the extreme end of the alcoholic hepatitis. Some patient, they may have portal hypertension or ascites or variceal bleeding. So it is mean by variceal bleeding, all you know. So it is simply means distended blood vessels in the esophagus or stomach. So it can occur in the absence of cirrhosis. Then the patient who has cirrhosis, they may remain asymptomatic. So even though patient have cirrhosis, such patient, they can be asymptomatic. So it is not necessary that patient who has cirrhosis, he will always develop symptoms. So some patient, they may be asymptomatic, and if symptoms are present, they are usually vague, which includes tiredness, malaise, or features of hepatocellular failure like jaundice, ascites, or peripheral edema. So even the cirrhosis has been developed in a patient, such type of patient, they may be asymptomatic many of the time, or they may have some vague symptoms like tiredness and malaise. So such type of symptoms, obviously, they will not indicate or they will not give a clue regarding cirrhosis in a patient. But obviously, if the patient has some other features like jaundice, ascites, or even peripheral edema, so such symptoms, they may give some clue towards some liver damage. Then if we consider the physical signs in chronic liver disease, so it is usually present in a patient with cirrhosis and can be broadly divided into the following. So most of the physical signs, as we have already seen, you will found in cirrhosis. Because in fatty liver, you will not get any physical signs. In alcoholic hepatitis also, most of the times it is asymptomatic, or in some patient will have spider nevy. So all these signs, they are basically inconclusive, but the most of the physical signs you will get in cirrhosis, so which includes first signs of portal hypertension, so which can be identified by the ascites or splenomegaly and prominent abdominal wall vein. So simply spider nevy, you can say. So these are the signs which indicates portal hypertension. Some patient, they may have signs of alcoholism and liver disease, so such as jaundice, telangiectasia, palmar erythema or parotid enlargement, clubbing, Dupuytren's contracture, and neuropathy. So Dupuytren's contracture, I will show you in the next diagram. Then some patients, they may have signs of hormonal dysfunction, which is mostly called as feminization, so which includes hypogonadism and gynecomastia. So all you know what is meant by hypogonadism and gynecomastia. So these are the few physical signs which are usually present in cirrhosis. So it has been divided into three categories. So you can remember by these three categories. So one category it includes signs of portal hypertension, then signs of alcoholism and liver disease, and signs of hormonal dysfunction. So this is an image which shows Dupuytren's contraction. So in Dupuytren's contraction, what happens? Mostly one or two fingers they are permanently flexed. So in this diagram, you can see the little finger and ring finger they have been flexed. So this is called as Dupuytren's contraction. So it is the most consistent finding which you get in alcoholic liver disease. So all the signs which we have previously discussed, they are non-specific, means none of these signs they are specific for alcoholic liver disease. So even though such signs they are present in a patient, so it always it doesn't mean that patient has alcoholic liver disease. So such signs they can be indicative of some other liver disease also. So they are not specific for alcoholic liver disease, but carotid enlargement, signs of feminization, and Dupuytren's contracture, they are commonly seen in alcoholic liver disease. Then we will see the laboratory features in alcoholic liver disease. So obviously, first of all, you will get elevation of AST, that is SGOT, and ALT, that is SGPT. So most of the times, it is usually accompanied by hypertriglyceridemia and hyperbilirubinemia. So obviously, this finding it is also a non-specific, because elevation of this AST or ALT you will also get in viral hepatitis also. So obviously, if there is an elevation of this liver enzymes, it doesn't mean patient has alcoholic liver disease. In alcoholic hepatitis, and in contrast to the other causes of fatty liver, the AST and ALT they are usually elevated 2 to 7 fold from their baseline. So in alcoholic hepatitis, you will get elevation of AST or ALT usually up to the 2 to 7 fold. So uh, I have mentioned the normal values of ALT and AST. So this level it can be increased up to the seventh fold. So say for example, uh, we take 55 units per liter, so it can be increased to the seventh fold. So roughly it will go to nearly 350 to 380. So ALT it can be increased up to this level, that is 380. The ratio of AST or ALT is more than 2 is to 1, and or higher, it is suggestive of alcoholic liver disease, which is present in 70% of cases. The characteristically SGOT it is usually less than 400, and SGPT it is less than 200 units per liter, and a higher level should suggest an alternative diagnosis. So simply means in alcoholic liver disease, you will not get elevation of SGOT more than 400 and elevation of SGPT more than 200. So in alcoholic liver disease, these liver enzymes they are not elevated much. So for example, SGOT it is not elevated more than 400, and SGPT it is not elevated more than 200. So values of these liver enzymes they will always be below 400 and 200. But if patient has elevated SGPT more than 400, so obviously you should suggest or suspect some alternative diagnosis and not alcoholic liver disease. In some patients, they may have leukocytosis, so it is obvious because we have seen already in previous lecture that patient may have inflammation, and that is alcoholic hepatitis. So obviously, if there is an inflammation, you will get leukocytosis, which is finding of acute alcoholic hepatitis, and it may be difficult to differentiate from associated infection. So obviously again this leukocytosis it is also a non-specific finding in alcoholic liver disease, liver leukocytosis, you can also get in infection of liver. Then platelets, they may be normal or markedly decreased. So this decrease in platelets you will usually get in liver cirrhosis. So why liver cirrhosis or why platelets are decreased in liver cirrhosis? That is because bilirubin, it gets decreased in advanced liver cirrhosis. So I'm talking about advanced liver cirrhosis. So in advanced liver cirrhosis, what happens? Bilirubin gets decreased, and because of this decreased bilirubin level, what will happen? There will be increased sequestration in spleen. So because of this, patient may have some decreased platelet count in liver disease. Derangement in hepatocyte synthetic function, it indicates more serious disease. So if you remember, while discussing viral hepatitis, I have told that liver is involved in synthesis of many coagulation factors. So if this synthesis of these coagulation factors has been deranged, so it is indicative of more serious disease. The hypoalbuminemia and coagulopathy are common in advanced liver injury. So it is obvious that in advanced liver injury, you will get hypoalbuminemia and coagulopathy. Then alkaline phosphatase and GGT levels, they are usually elevated to a variable degree. So some patients, they may have elevated levels of alkaline phosphatase and GGT levels, but to a variable degree. Physiologically, the role of GGT levels, it has not been yet uh, find out, but some considers that it has a role in the metabolism of proteins. So as you all know, alkaline phosphatase, obviously it is involved in protein metabolism. So these enzymes, they can be elevated to a variable degree. Then you may found some metabolic alterations which includes hyperglycemia. So that is because uh, the patient will develop insulin resistance in the liver. So because of this insulin resistance in the liver, patient will have hyperglycemia. So such finding, it is usually more consistent in cirrhosis. So in cirrhosis, what happens? Liver becomes more resistant to the insulin, and because of this insulin resistance, patient will have hyperglycemia. Then hypertriglyceridemia. So it is obvious. Uh, we have already seen. Then electrolyte abnormalities, which includes low levels of potassium, magnesium, and phosphorus. So it is again because of insulin resistance. So because we all know physiologically insulin has role in the flux of potassium into the cell. So because of insulin resistance, what will happen? Most of the insulin, it is shifted into the cell, and because of shift of this potassium into the cell, you will get decreased potassium level in the blood. Then next investigation is ultrasonography of the abdomen. So this investigation, it is not useful in the diagnosis of alcoholic liver disease, but it is useful in the detection of fatty liver disease, determining the liver size. So obviously to know the cirrhosis. Then upper GI endoscopy, which is useful in the diagnosis of portal hypertension in a patient with alcoholic liver disease. Now we will see the prognosis of this alcoholic liver disease. This prognosis, it is dependent on many factors, which include nutritional status, continued alcohol ingestion, presence of comorbid conditions like hepatitis B or C. So these all points we already discussed in first lecture regarding nutritional status or drinking pattern or drinking habit and presence of comorbid conditions. Then if patient is taking hepatotoxic drugs like acetaminophen, so obviously prognosis, it is usually unfavorable in such patients. Or patient has developed some complications of cirrhosis like ascites or encephalopathy or variceal bleed. So obviously, prognosis is unfavorable in such condition. And lastly, the advanced age and acute severe alcoholic hepatitis. So these are some factors on which the prognosis of the patient or the condition is dependent. Survival rate at 5 years is as follows. Uh, in fatty liver, 5-year survival rate is nearly 70 to 80%. In alcoholic hepatitis or cirrhosis, it is nearly 50% to the 75%. So it means either patient has alcoholic hepatitis only, so survival rate is 50% to 70%, or patient has only cirrhosis. So in that case also, 5-year survival rate is nearly 50% to 70%. But if patient has cirrhosis as well as alcoholic hepatitis, so if both the conditions they are present, in that case, the survival rate is only 30% to the 50%. Overall, 1 year survival rate it is 80%, which drops down to 50% at 5 years. So nearly in 80% cases, patient always have 1 year survival rate, but it will drop down to the 50% at 5 years. Now we will see the matrix score, or it is sometimes called as discriminant function score. So this score it is usually used to identify or for the assessment of the severity of disease. So I have mentioned the formula. So DF stands for discriminant function. So in that formula, we take 4.6 times value of patient's prothrombin time, out of which control time is minus, and later on serum bilirubin is added. So this is a formula for this matrix score or discriminant function. So if the value of this DF it is more than 32, it is considered as severe alcoholic hepatitis and it has 1 month mortality of approximately 50%. So this score it is more important while dealing with alcoholic liver disease because it gives an rough idea, or you can say it can predict the mortality of the patient in the next 1 month. All the patients with hepatic encephalopathy and hepatorenal syndrome, they have mortality of 50% and 75% respectively. The patient with alcoholic hepatitis, he develops hepatic encephalopathy, then the mortality is nearly 50%. And if patient develops hepatorenal syndrome, so in that case, mortality is nearly 75%. Then the treatment part. So the treatment part of this alcoholic liver disease, it first include general measures. So in general measures, the first and most important is abstinence from the alcohol consumption. So this is the cornerstone of the management because this abstinence it improves the survival of the patients. It also improves the hepatic histology. It also reduces the portal pressure and also the progression to the cirrhosis. So the abstinence from alcohol consumption it has many benefits because it will improve the survival of the patient. Also, it will improve the hepatic histology because whatever damage has been caused to the liver because of drinking. So during abstinence, uh, liver will have some time to recover from those damage. So obviously, hepatic histology will also get improved, and obviously later on, portal pressure and will be reduced, and patient will not progress to the cirrhosis. So because of this, patient should always be encouraged to abstain, but they are often unable to achieve complete and durable alcohol abstinence, and psychiatric help is often required. So we should always encourage the patient uh, to stay away from the alcohol consumption, but sometimes patient is not able to achieve this alcohol abstinence. So in that case, some may need psychiatric assessment or help. So in that case, drugs which can help to sustain abstinence, they include naltrexone and camprosate. Then nutritional support. So why nutritional support is important? We have already seen in first lecture. The degree of malnutrition correlates directly with the modality. So I have mentioned the example here. So at 1 year from the time of diagnosis of alcoholic hepatitis, the patients with mild malnutrition, they have only 40% mortality rate uh, as compared to the 70% in those with severe malnutrition. So by this data, you can understand the importance of nutritional support in a patient. So if patient is diagnosed with alcoholic hepatitis now, so in next year, if the patient has only mild malnutrition, so the mortality rate it is only 40% in that patient. But if patient is severely malnutrited, the mortality rate it increased to the 76% within 1 year. So this data alone it signifies the importance of nutritional support in a patient with alcoholic liver disease. In general, enteral nutrition it is preferable over parenteral supplementation, and protein should be supplied nearly 1 to 1.5 gram kg uh, per body weight per day. So this is an ideal protein intake for a patient with alcoholic liver disease. So patient should take protein at least 1 to 1.5 gram per kg body weight per day. So for example, if patient has 50 kg weight, so patient will need 50 gram of protein per day. The next important measure or matter of concern is alcohol withdrawal, because many of the patient they may go into withdrawal of this alcohol, so which is commonly seen, and it needs an aggressive management with intravenous glucose and thiamine supplementation to prevent vernix encephalopathy. So many of the patients who try to abstain from the alcohol, they may go into alcohol withdrawal symptoms. So which is most of commonly seen scenario in our clinical practice, and it needs aggressive management. There are certain drugs which are helpful while dealing with alcohol withdrawal, so which includes chlordiazepam and benzodiazepines. Then we will see specific treatment for fatty liver. So in fatty liver, again, abstinence, it is the key intervention in the management of fatty liver, and it leads to the normalization of liver function test and imaging and histology. So the findings which we get in the liver enzymes or on imaging, so they will get to normal only by the abstinence from alcohol. Then overweight patient, they should lose their weight with diet and exercise, and any associated metabolic abnormality such as diabetes or hyperlipidemia, they should also be treated aggressively. Then alcoholic hepatitis. So most of the patients with alcoholic hepatitis, they are associated with fatty liver and have a mild form of the disease which requires no specific treatment except general measures. So in alcoholic hepatitis also, the cornerstone of the management is general measures, which we already discussed in previous slides. The other patients with more severe acute alcoholic hepatitis, they require specific treatment with anti-inflammatory cytokines and steroids and anti-cytokine therapy, which include pentoxifylline and infliximab. So the patients with mild form of disease, they does not require specific treatment, and only general measures they are sufficient to treat the patient. But if patient has some severe acute alcoholic hepatitis, so such patient they need some specific treatment. So they need anti-inflammatory agents and anti-cytokine therapy and steroids. Then for alcoholic cirrhosis, no specific treatment it is available for alcoholic cirrhosis, and only abstinence and correction of nutritional deficiencies are the major components of management to prevent disease progression. However, the treatment of cirrhosis, some treatment for the cirrhosis, it is there, which we will discuss later on when we will see the liver cirrhosis separately. But overall, if patient has alcoholic hepatitis, then in that case, no specific treatment is available and only abstinence and correction of nutritional deficiencies is important. Then finally, liver transplantation. So in acute alcoholic hepatitis, no matter how severe it is a contraindication for liver transplantation. So, if a patient has acute alcoholic hepatitis, so there is no matter however severe it is a contraindication for liver transplantation. The patients with end-stage alcoholic liver disease, they should be considered for liver transplant. So, the patient who has end-stage alcoholic liver disease, those are the candidates for the liver transplant. But still, this first line, that is acute alcoholic hepatitis, it is a contraindication for liver transplantation. So it is a debatable line, or you can say most of the physicians or surgeons, they do not believe that there is it is a contraindication, uh, or you can say for the transplantation there is a 6 months rule, which is present, or most of the physicians they follow the 6 months rule for the liver transplantation, because generally 6 months of abstinence it is considered necessary as an eligibility for liver transplantation, because this 6 months period it gives some advantage, which includes some long-term sobriety. That means patient is psychologically prepared for this liver transplantation, and it also gives some time for psychological assessment of the patient, and also it allows the recovery of liver function from acute alcoholic hepatitis, because in 6 months of duration, liver may get healed automatically by itself. So this 6 month time, it will give time for the liver to recover from its damage. So that's why the 6 months of abstinence, it is a rule prior to the liver transplantation. However, uh, again, most of the surgeons, they don't believe or don't follow this 6 month rule. So it is again a debatable, you can say, rule. Then conclusion. So what is the conclusion of this alcoholic liver disease? So we have already seen that most of the patients, like 90% to 100% of heavy drinkers, they show evidence of fatty livers. Only 10% to 30% they develop alcoholic hepatitis, and 5% to 15% they will develop cirrhosis. The daily intake of alcohol that results in liver injury, it varies and depends on a number of factors. The alcoholic liver disease, it develops at a lower doses in South Asians like Indians, women, and patients with hepatitis C infection. The abstinence and correction of nutritional deficiencies are major components in the long-term management of alcoholic liver disease. So this line you should remember, that only abstinence and correction of nutritional deficiencies, they are the major components by dealing with patients of alcoholic liver disease. Then anti-inflammatory therapy with corticosteroids and anti-cytokine therapy with pentoxifylline, they are effective in the patients with severe alcoholic hepatitis. The liver biopsy, it may be required when the diagnosis it is in doubt, and it is of importance when corticosteroids are being considered for treating alcoholic hepatitis. So prior to initiating the treatment with corticosteroids, one may go for liver biopsy. The patients with end-stage alcoholic liver disease, they should be considered for alcoholic liver transplantation. So this is about alcoholic liver disease. So in next lecture we will start with a new topic. So today is the end of the lecture. Thank you.